Life in 1980s Britain feels surprisingly close, yet, in many ways, belongs to another world. Everyday habits that once seemed perfectly ordinary would now place someone at risk of fines, penalties, or even prosecution. The social fabric of the time was defined by a lighter approach to safety, health, and regulation, with traditions often outweighing caution. Over the past 40 years, however, a profound cultural shift has reshaped daily life. Governments introduced stricter laws, campaigners raised awareness, and society as a whole developed a sharper sense of responsibility. What was once dismissed as harmless fun or casual freedom is now tightly controlled. This contrast highlights not just legal reform, but a transformation in values and attitudes. In the 1980s, pubs were far more than places to buy drinks. They were social centers where entire communities gathered. It was not unusual for teenagers, some barely 16, to slip inside and order a pint without much difficulty. Landlords often turned a blind eye, seeing it as part of growing up rather than a serious offense. This permissive atmosphere reflected a culture in which rules around alcohol were applied with flexibility, and youthful experimentation was quietly tolerated. Today, however, such behavior is unthinkable. Strict identification checks, heavy fines, and the risk of losing a license mean landlords enforce the law rigorously. What was once a casual rite of passage has become a punishable offense with lasting consequences. Just as drinking underage once passed with little comment, traveling without a seatbelt was also part of everyday life. Until 1983, wearing one in the front seats was not compulsory, and millions of drivers saw it as unnecessary or even uncomfortable. Children often climbed around freely in cars, and few questioned the risks. The introduction of compulsory seatbelts marked a turning point, supported by evidence that they dramatically reduced fatalities and serious injuries. Over time, compliance grew as public campaigns reinforced the message of safety. Today, failing to buckle up is both illegal and socially frowned upon, carrying fines and penalty points. What was once a casual choice has become a legal duty, shaping safer roads across Britain. The same relaxed attitude that once tolerated unbelted drivers could also be seen in the nation's approach to smoking. In the 1980s, cigarettes were everywhere, in restaurants, offices, cinemas, and even on buses and trains. A haze of smoke hung over pubs, and many people accepted it as part of daily life. Gradually, however, health campaigns began to expose the dangers of secondhand smoke, and public opinion shifted. Step by step, legislation restricted smoking in workplaces and enclosed spaces, culminating in the complete indoor ban of 2007. This landmark change not only cleared the air, but also transformed social expectations, turning smoking from an accepted habit into a marginalized activity with profound implications for public health. The shift in attitudes towards smoking was mirrored by changing views on drink driving. In the 1980s, it was not uncommon for someone to enjoy several pints at the pub and still get behind the wheel, often without a second thought. Legal alcohol limits were more generous, and the cultural acceptance of one for the road made enforcement inconsistent. Over time, however, rising road accidents linked to alcohol sparked awareness campaigns throughout the 1990s and 2000s. Slogans such as "Don't drink and drive" became ingrained in public consciousness. Today, limits are strict, penalties are severe, and social condemnation is immediate. What once passed as harmless routine is now considered reckless and socially unacceptable behavior. The same casual approach that once excused drink driving was also evident in the way people cycled. In the 1980s, bicycles were mainly viewed as toys for children or a simple leisure activity for adults, and hardly anyone wore protective gear. Streets and parks were full of riders without helmets, with little concern for accidents. As awareness of head injuries grew, safety campaigns and medical research began to highlight the risks. Today, helmets are strongly encouraged, particularly for children, and in some regions they are legally required. The modern emphasis on prevention reflects a broader cultural shift towards responsibility and protection, transforming cycling from a carefree pastime into an activity shaped by health and safety norms. Just as cyclists once rode without protection, it was once common to see children traveling in cars unrestrained. In the 1980s, youngsters often sat in the back seat without seatbelts, or in some cases, even stood while the vehicle was in motion. Regulations for child safety were minimal, and few questioned the risks involved. Over time, research into child injuries and safety campaigns highlighted the dangers, prompting significant legislative change. Today, car seats are mandatory for children, with strict rules governing their use and heavy fines for non-compliance. What was once casual and overlooked is now a serious legal obligation, reflecting society's heightened commitment to protecting its youngest members. Just as children are now carefully protected in vehicles, society also began to reconsider the portrayal of harmful habits like smoking. In the 1980s, cigarette advertisements were ubiquitous, appearing on television, billboards, and even during high-profile sports events such as Formula One races. Smoking was associated with glamour, sophistication, and adult independence, and these messages went largely unquestioned. Gradually, however, public health campaigns exposed the dangers of tobacco, reshaping public perception and reducing social acceptance. Over time, legislation tightened, culminating in a complete ban on cigarette advertising across all media. Today, the absence of such adverts is a striking symbol of cultural transformation, illustrating how once normalized behaviors can be radically redefined. As public attitudes shifted around smoking, safety in everyday play also came under scrutiny. In the 1980s, children often played football in quiet residential streets or rode bicycles without adult supervision, enjoying a freedom that now seems remarkable. Neighborhoods were perceived as safe and traffic was lighter, so parents rarely worried about serious accidents. Over the years, however, increased vehicle numbers and heightened awareness of risks changed perceptions. Today, such activities would often be restricted, with designated play areas recommended, and in some cases, unsupervised street play could even be deemed unlawful. This evolution highlights society's broader shift towards protecting children, balancing freedom with the responsibility to prevent harm. Just as children's freedom in the streets was gradually curtailed, society also began to reconsider the treatment of animals for entertainment. In the 1980s, lions, elephants, tigers, and other exotic creatures were regular features in traveling circuses, captivating audiences across the country. At the time, public concern for animal welfare was limited, and such displays were widely accepted as harmless fun. Over the following decades, however, activism and growing awareness of animal rights sparked widespread debate. As attitudes shifted, legislation followed, culminating in a full ban on the use of wild animals in circuses across the UK. What was once a popular spectacle has been replaced by ethical standards prioritizing the well-being of animals. Just as circuses evolved to prioritize animal welfare, rural Britain witnessed a transformation in attitudes toward traditional practices like fox hunting. In the 1980s, such activities were widely accepted, seen as part of heritage and country life, with little ethical debate or public scrutiny. Over time, however, awareness of animal welfare and environmental concerns grew, leading to progressive legislation that restricted or outright banned certain hunting methods. These changes reflect a broader cultural shift in how society balances tradition with ethics, showing a greater respect for animal rights and the environment. Practices once considered normal have become heavily regulated or illegal, marking the evolution of values in both rural and urban Britain. Looking back at everyday life in 1980s Britain, it is striking how many once common behaviors have since become illegal, from teenagers drinking in pubs to children playing unsupervised in the streets, and from unrestrained car journeys to public smoking and the use of animals in entertainment. The rules governing daily life have transformed dramatically. These changes reflect not only evolving legislation, but also shifting cultural values and growing public awareness of health, safety, and animal welfare. What was once accepted as ordinary is now subject to strict regulations and social scrutiny. It prompts reflection on our own habits today, suggesting that future generations may look back and find many of our current norms equally surprising or even unlawful. If you enjoyed this look back at everyday life in 1980s Britain and how so many familiar habits are now illegal, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating insights into history, culture, and social change. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Share your thoughts in the comments. What habits from the past do you find most surprising? Or what everyday actions today might be considered illegal in the future?